Hey, it's Ben. Welcome back to the Mile Deep Micropod. And in the last 3 podcasts, we've gone through circle people, zigzag people, and straight line people. These are the ways that people stop themselves from implementing, taking action. And when you can see how you are showing up either as a circle person, as a zigzag person, and you can be a straight line person, which we're going to talk about in this podcast and on this video, however you're watching or consuming this content. We're going to talk about straight line people, the people that are able to have an idea and then move into action. These are the people that we want to be. These are the type of leaders that we want to be. Now, we've probably experienced those people in our life where you've seen someone, they've got an idea, they don't mess about, they do the most direct thing possible. And I remember first discovering this concept and realizing oh yeah, I don't need to worry myself with all these feelings of unsureness, uncertainty, doubt that comes up. Yeah, I can go and take action anyway. And what you'll notice is there is a massive distinction between people that succeed in life and people that are always talking a great game. Is the difference in those two people is implementation, it's action. There's those people that have an idea, go and take an action, and then they go and take the next action, they go and take the next action. Those are straight line people. There are other people who will have an idea, they will take an action, they might not get the result they want. They'll lick their wounds for a couple of days, weeks, months, years, and that's why they never get results. And what I saw in this possibility is that everybody can be a straight line person. This is not you're not born with a gene that makes you a straight line person. This is a created way of being in the world. So if you're listening to this and you've listened to the previous 2 podcasts and you've really identified with being a circle person or a zigzag person, let me share with you that this isn't a personality type. It's not a diagnosis of this is who you are, this is who you will always be. It is a choice. You can choose to be a straight line person. Now, let's go through some of the characteristics of a straight line person or straight line leader so you can start to implement and create your life like a straight line leader. So the first one, a straight line leader knows the present or knows the future is created in the present. Sorry, let me make sure I get this really, really clear. A straight line person knows the future is created in the present. Now, I remember when I first heard this statement, I didn't really get it. It's right, the future's the future. And what I realized is a lot of the way I was creating my life was that the future I would go is where I took action. I would go and make those calls tomorrow. I would go and take action. I would create that thing tomorrow. And I think so many people do this. They push their action into the future. However, a straight line person knows the present is created in the future. And then the exercise that really did this for me, and if you've bought my vision creation system, you'll know this, is that you write your eulogy, and this is something that is very abstract for so many people. They write a eulogy, and they may have done it on self-development programs before, but they haven't had this piece of information, which is so important, is that when we write our eulogy of who we want to be in the future, the important distinction is that we start living like that right now. This is so important. When you think about this, I'm going to be a generous person. I'm going to, Ben was a generous person who connected with people and said how grateful he was to work with them, be with them, all those kind of things, right? And the problem is that so many people that I had seen do this exercise, they saw their eulogy, the thing that was going to be read out at that funeral about them, as this thing in the future. So I've got all this time to be that person. Whereas a straight line person knows to be that in the future, I need to be it now. If I want to be decisive in the future, I need to be decisive now. Confidence isn't something that comes in the future. It's something I can choose to be courageous now. And this is a really, really, and it sounds quite simple, but it is actually a really simple way to think. It's if I want to be generous, kind, courageous, bold, this isn't going to happen after the next thing. Isn't going to happen when I get my next promotion. This isn't going to happen when I've lost all the weight. I can be that now. It's a decision. So that's the first thing. A straight line person knows that the future is created in the present. Because technically we don't have a future, we have a series of current moments that are strung out in the rest of our life. And I did a lot of reading into time perspective and time philosophy, and actually spoke to a time philosopher I said to him, I was on a call with him, I was like, can I just clarify something with you? There's no such thing as a future, right? There's just another present moment, and then another present moment, and a series of present moments strung out into the future. And he was like, yeah, that's quite profound. It took me a long time to really realize that. And I was like, oh, brilliant, great. So anyway, off track a little bit there. A straight line person uses distinctions. They can quickly see how they are showing up. Interested versus committed, victim versus owner, expectations versus agreements. Now, distinctions, what they do, and we use these in coaching. I'm a coach. Part of what I do on a call with somebody is I will help them see how they are creating their life. Oh, you're showing up interested versus committed. It's black and white. It's contrast, because when we contrast in the human mind, we can quickly understand something. I'm being a victim versus taking ownership. It's very easy to understand. And what a straight line leader can do is quickly use a distinction to either enable themselves to move into action. I'm being a circle person, I'm being a zigzag person, I'm being a straight line person. That could be one of the distinctions that you use. It helps people quickly move into action. Now, and it helps quash behavior, quash patterns, and an expert leader is able to use the right one in the right place. For example, when I'm on a call and a client is showing up and they're saying, oh, this has to be the right plan before I take action, I'll be like, well, we can have the testing versus trusting distinction here. Most people show up wanting the trust to come before they've tested. Whereas what we're going to do is we're just going to test something in order to trust it. And then they'll quickly understand, I get that. So a straight line person can quickly use distinctions to move their state. And they can quickly spot disempowering views. Oh, I'm being interested versus committed. Being interested is sometimes disempowering. Committed language is very, very decisive. It's present tense. They're very, very quick to spot disempowering views. And when we can spot our disempowering views, we can move into a place where we are way, way better at moving forward and taking action. So this is a really, really great skill for a leader. The thing I've noticed about straight line people is their actions. They don't try and solve problem number 842. They solve the next problem. So they know how to shrink the change. Now, what I mean by this is that when I was a nutritional consultant and I would work with people on their habits around food, I would know that they had to get to around about maybe 120 grams of protein, for example, in a day. I'm like, okay, Mary, we need to get you to 120 grams of protein. I knew that if she was currently eating 50 or 40 or less, for her to go from 40 to 120 overnight would be somewhat overwhelming. So what I would help her do is week in, week out for 6 to 12 weeks is just add more protein to her diet. That would probably be one of the first steps I took with many people. And when we successfully did that, that would cause a significant change. So a straight line person understands that change takes time, and we can the aggregation of marginal gains, so that the tiny little changes that we take up over time, or we create over time, is what transforms us massively. Whereas someone who is a zigzag, what they'll do is they'll put so much effort in the beginning, they burn themselves out. And this is something I've noticed with high-performing people. They know that they can just take one step at a time, get things going. A little bit like what I've done with this podcast. When we first started it, it was like 1 episode a week. I moved to 2 episodes a week now. The goal is to get to 3 episodes a week. I haven't done that over 3 weeks. It's probably going to take me the thick end of like 3 to 6 months to do that. And leaders, straight line people, know that 0.5% change will accrue over time. And this is so important because it allows them to compound their results and they don't get overwhelmed. What I think overwhelm for a lot of people is it's feedback. Overwhelm is feedback that you've lost momentum. So when I'm feeling overwhelmed, what it's often a reverse indicator for is that I've lost momentum. So what happens is that I need to get that going again. But if you think about a zigzag person, they're constantly getting overwhelmed because they constantly lose momentum. And a zigzag person lives in overwhelm because they've got no momentum, because they're not getting anywhere. Whereas a straight line person knows that they can continually take tiny actions. The next thing about a straight line person, straight line leader, is that things are simple. Things are very simple. Now, what I've noticed personally is that sometimes I've made things complicated to validate myself. I remember, especially when I first started as a nutritional consultant and helping people with their food, I went to the depths of understanding nutrition. I worked with a guy called Phil Richards. Phil Richards is a phenomenal health consultant, really knows the intricacies of health. Now, I went really deep with his work. And what I came out the other side, and especially as I got more experience and I helped more people, I realized that most people didn't need that really, really highly complicated plan of food prescription and stuff like that. Wasn't what they needed. They needed to control their calories, drink more water, eat fiber, and eat protein, and get those 4 things right, and lose a lot of the attachments they had to good and bad foods and stuff like that. But the thing is the simplicity was what helped them get results over time. And it's the same in business, is that I'll listen to somebody's plan about how they're going to change their life, how they're going to shift their business, how they're going to lead their team. And I'm like, wow, that sounds so freaking complicated. What would it look like if it was simple? And often someone might give you a 10-step plan and they were like, oh, actually, I could just do this one thing and it would make all the other 9 steps not valid. So what we want to look at is that a straight line leader can make something very, very simple. One of my master skills is taking very complicated things and making them very simple. Now, when I first started out in coaching and professional transformation and in fitness, I wanted to share how complicated I could make things and how technical things were. Whereas I realized that just overwhelmed people. It didn't help them learn. And what I really want to understand is I go a mile deep so I can make it crystal clear and easy to understand. So a leader can make things simple and understand that there's so much complexity that goes into the simplicity. And that's that you can have both coexisting at the same time. Another thing a straight line person doesn't buy into is this idea of personal permanence. Just because you've been a certain way, it doesn't mean you're always going to be a certain way. Now, what I've noticed in myself and I've noticed in clients is that they'll say, that's just the way I am. That's just the way I've been. That's just who I am. And if you think about it, that's a circle person's view. Like, because I've been like this, I'm always going to be like this. And so I see the problem as fixed. Well, what a straight line person doesn't buy into is this idea that they are a certain way. They don't buy into personal permanence. So what happens is, even though I've been this person that hasn't taken action on my finances, hasn't made sales before, hasn't had hard conversations, they recognize that as just a story. And albeit that story might have gravitas in the world, it might have so many belief legs, it's really hard to overcome. They can say, well, do you know what? I'm just going to do this experiment. Although I haven't been someone that's reached out, made sales, taken action, I'm going to pretend I'm that person for the next 30 days and I will see what happens. They'll create a curious experiment. And this is often what I will do in coaching with people, is that we will create an experiment saying, okay, well, why don't we just acknowledge that story as a story and let's create a way of playing with this new way of being. And that can be that they go and take action every day, they go and do a workout every day, And what you see is absolutely huge transformation. You can see it when people don't call themselves runners. You can see themselves when people don't say them. They could speak in front of people. And these challenges, absolutely incredible. These little ways that people start to see themselves like, oh, right, it was just a story. They didn't buy into personal permanence, what's also known as personality. The final thing, this is something that's really important. I was talking to a client about this the other day, is this idea of creating projects and campaigns. A straight line leader isn't like a scattergun. And the reason that they are so good at implementing is they create a project and they say, right, okay, well, this is called Project Podcast. And these are the first 5 episodes I'm going to record. And these are going to go in my calendar. And they create a project and they just put the project into the calendar and just obey their calendar. And the way that this is different to a circle person is that they don't create projects. They just feel like they should do something and just go and take action, and they don't know what the next step is, and they're left thinking what the next step is. I yesterday sat down at my desk for thick end of 4 hours and planned out the project of launching the Mile Deep Mastermind. So if you're listening to this, I'm launching a mastermind in November. It's called the Mile Deep Mastermind. And I'm going to be launching a series of things and pieces in the podcast and trainings about how you could benefit from going a mile deep to create success that's a mile high. It's a project. So what a leader is incredible at doing is building projects and then communicating with their team members, their clients, what project they are currently doing. And this is what's really, really great. I've watched great leaders in action with this. I remember going to see Dave Wright, who is the CEO of MyZone. And I remember him sharing a project about what he was working on with MyZone. And it was a project-based business. It was a campaign-based business. They had projects, they brought them into fruition, they marketed those products, and you could just see these products growing, and it was amazing. Whereas if you think about so many entrepreneurs, experts, coaches, they just get lost in very, very unclear projects. They don't even, not projects, they don't know what the opposite of a project is, a problem. So creating a campaign-based or project-driven business is the step that you absolutely need. And you can only do that when you have a vision. So that's why the vision creation system helps you create a vision. So that is all about being a straight line person. There is so many levels to this, and there's so many distinctions that you could add in yourself. And being a straight line leader, being a straight line person is a way of acting. It's a choice. I was like, actually, do you know what? I'm going to behave like that from now on. I remember being a very disorganized, chaotic mess in my business as a leader. And it wasn't until I decided, right, okay, I'm going to start building campaigns and bringing people in through these campaigns, which drastically shifted my leadership, communication, and it was just a decision. It wasn't a self-development journey. It was just like one day I was like, no, I'm not going to be that person anymore, because that person doesn't get to the goals that I want it to get to. So it's a decision. Hopefully this has been helpful. If you've enjoyed this video or listened to this podcast, please do me a favor, subscribe, like the video, give us a comment about what you've enjoyed, what specifically has resonated with you. And I want to bring on more guests to talk about great quality leadership. So if you've listened to these 3 podcasts, it's actually saying that if you've listened to this podcast, there's 2 podcasts that are previous that go through circle style people and zigzag people, and these 3 podcasts together will help you understand how you are creating your foundation for implementation. So thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Take care.